to events with Peter in Bali, Dubai, Bangkok, Beijing, Chongqing, and probably plenty of other things. And we just recently reconnected, and I'm so delighted and honored to have Peter here, old friend. So Peter, can you come up? Okay. Peter, I'm going to let you sit down, but Peter took over from an entrepreneur that everybody knows, who has quite a personality here in Hong Kong. And for the last 20 years, has really been shaping Giordano to over 3,000 stores, and probably can't open them fast enough in China right now. But he's kept that entrepreneurial spirit. He's one of the most humble people I know, and I'm very honored that he's a neighbor, that he's also a friend, but he's given me a ride home tonight. So, Peter.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, how are you? I'm not quite sure, whether we qualify to speak to a very distinguished audience, and I think most of you are fairly accomplished. But the way I think is that it doesn't really matter when you're miles ahead of me or yards behind me. I suppose when we dialogue, when we listen to other people, there's always benefits. It's always beneficial. Even if I say something stupid in the next 45 or 60 minutes, I think you can learn from my stupidity. So you'll still benefit. So bear with me. I had a couple of very interesting meetings in the last span of 2 weeks. One shareholder of Giordano, she came from Malaysia. I can't really tell whether she's British or Australian lady, but she insisted on seeing me because I had not been talking to shareholders in the last couple of years, ever since we hired this CFO, who's crazy about talking to shareholders. He loves them. I don't know why people would love to spend long meetings with shareholders. Anyhow, she insisted to see me, so I went to her hotel coffee shop at around 7:45 in the morning. I had to get there early because I had a 9:30 meeting in Shenzhen. So we ended up spending 1/3 of the time talking about how to develop people. 1/3 of the time, she was trying to get some information of this another company that I'm sitting on the board as an INED, being favored with the fast food, the other fast food restaurant. And 1/3 of the time we talk about Buddhism. So that was a quite interesting meeting. I promised her 45 minutes, but we ended up spending about an hour among those three topics. And then last week, Friday, before I headed up to Guangzhou to open one of our new brands, which I have named Beau Monde. I suppose in French that means beautiful world or something like that. And it's a very interesting idea. It's a remake of Giordano 1988 version, but in a different twist. Some of you have complained to me that even an extra large or XXL do not fit you. Well, it's our fault. In the past several years, we try to be more fashionable, we try to be Korean, we try to be something. And we ended up, I couldn't buy any clothing from Giordano anymore. So the new brand, Beau Monde, as I said, would be like 1988 Giordano remake. And it's going to be very limited styles, many colors, and very generous cutting. So I will wear a large size. It's really flattering. So it makes me happy. So one day I hope you can be able to pick up some of those clothing, either probably not in Hong Kong as fast, but China, Shenzhen, especially, maybe on our e-shop. But the meeting that I had in Hong Kong, before I went up to China, happened to be a Buddhist school that wanted me to sit down and talk to some of the students, some of the top students. It ended up, they have rounded up Sorry, it was a Saturday. They rounded up 10 Form 5 students, about half girls and half boys. Very shy, but very intelligent students. And I think one of the purposes was to help them to practice English. So we had our dialogue in English for about half of the way. But I could sense that a lot of difficulty and hesitation in speaking up. So I opened up and said, okay, you can choose, Cantonese or English, doesn't really matter. So they were a lot more lively when we studied mother tongue. And so we talked about things. And I was speaking to a bunch of students from a Buddhist school. So I thought I would choose to give them answers in a Buddhist way. It wasn't exactly the Zen way, because Zen way wouldn't have made any sense at all. But the Buddhist way still, it can make some sense. So we ended up talking for about hour, 15 minutes. And in the end, I'm very happy that I think some, if not all of them, probably pick up one or two things that I said. I'm pretty confident that probably will change the course of the life. Now, at my age, I'm not a guru. I'm not a really high achiever. I don't care about business too much anymore. Or at least what I should say, don't be concerned if you are my shareholders. I don't mean that. You care about business, I go drinking and fool around and all the time. Of course I care about business in the sense that I care about leaving a legacy. So the management that come after me or succeed me, they would have a solid ground, not a spoiled foundation, but a good foundation to continue what they need to do, depending on what the situation will be in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So I care about business in that sense. But on a personal level, I really don't care much about money, materialistic things. I have 2 sons. Both of them turn out not the way I like them to be. But both of them are very happy in their own way. The older one is in Canada, a typical middle-class family, 1 house, 2 cars, and 3 kids. Right? And the two kids are already in college. Well, I should say one is in college. The granddaughter is picking between UBC and McGill or University of Alberta, for September. And the younger one, Chloe, she just came back from Paris on a field trip, really happy, very cute. But I meant him to be a doctor. But he's now installing security system for homes and for centers and for business. And he's very happy. He posts his stuff on Facebook all the time. My younger son kind of wandering around between Canada, United States, Hong Kong, Nepal, India, and Bhutan, and Myanmar, and Thailand, and so on and so forth. It was my fault. When I was going to school, taking my Master's of Buddhist Studies at Harvard University, he happened to be in my house. So I asked him if he would like to come join me to one of the classes, because it was only 5 minutes away from my house. I didn't think he would say yes, but he said yes. So I took him over there. It was a Tibetan Rinpoche. He was born in India, grew up in Vancouver, educated in Seattle. So he spoke very fluent American. And he could talk about American culture and all this pop culture. So my son immediately attached to him. And then they started to become good friends. And then Panlok Rinpoche took Jonathan to India, Dharamsala, to see his master. And then Jonathan began to fall in love with the Buddhist philosophy. He was meant to be a lawyer. So he'll be in Seattle in May, spending 2.5 months there doing some some kind of low-paid job for them to either something to do with technology. Because Jonathan is also very punchy into technology. He studied, after he finished, he was born in Canada. After he graduated from UBC, just like kids, late achievers, typical, he wasn't sure what to do. So the one thing he hates, he told me he hates to the guts, is business. It's about making money. So he spent about a year at City University taking a course in 3D animation. They showed me some of the creation, really nice, good stuff. He's my son, so everything he makes is very nice stuff to me. He's very talented that way. But he chose not to do that as a livelihood. He chose not to, although he helped me sometimes with the prints on our t-shirts, but he chooses not to do that as a job. And now he's kind of wandering around. Both of them are very happy, although they did not tell me what I wanted them to be. I want this interaction or this encounter with you and with your permission to be very personal. Not that I don't want to talk about Giordano, not that I don't want to talk about business, but as I said, at a certain stage of our lives, sometimes we think, what's this about pursuit of materialistic things, money, fame, so-called success. What do all of this lead to? At one point of life, I guess we start to ponder. Sure, innovation. Sakyamuni himself was very innovative, as most of you probably know. He was known as one of the Shamans, i.e., he and a few other schools at that time. Buddhism was only one of them. And they were challenging the existing establishment or established religions, which was the Brahmins, which had a way of thinking, a system of thinking, and certain traditions, which some of the younger, including Sakyamuni and the Jainists and a whole bunch of other schools, they started to question, is there another way of thinking about life? Is there another way to accomplish peace? So they consider the rebels, culprits, or they were not popular in the beginning, obviously. They were rejected by the majority of the people in that part of India. But they believed that a system that had worked for so long could not continue to work forever. There's got to be another way. Now his domain was another way of understanding the universe, understanding the relationship between universe and man. So he supposedly, according to the story or history, he spent the time with under the Bodhi tree, eventually, and he was enlightened. And then he had this thinking. Of course, a lot of you might be aware that some of the 18th century scientists and philosophers, Western, began to understand, began to agree with some of these views of the universe and the views of the relationship between universe and man. That was set by Sakyamuni 2,500 years ago, very valid, in the 18th century. And even today, more and more modern scientists and philosophers tend to agree, this is what the nature is. This is the reality of nature. Now, as innovators in the audience, I suppose in order to innovate in a meaningful sense and in a worthy sense, it's not about, well, if I innovate, then I make some money. If I do things differently, I will earn more money. I don't think that it would be a good motive. I think the motive is that you have a curiosity. You disagree with something. It should not be done this way. There's got to be a faster way of doing it. There's got to be a way that to do things that will make it better, faster, more reliable, better quality, whatever. Whatever the words that you're curious in. Pursue it. Now, don't care about money in the beginning. And when you start to see successes, making modifications most of the time will be needed. Then the next phase is, well, how can I benefit more people? If I can scale this up, then more people can benefit from my innovations. That could be an object, it could be a process, it could be a way of arranging things. Doesn't really matter. Innovation doesn't necessarily only mean a physical object. Usually it's about rearranging old things a new way. Then you start to scale it up. And that's the time you have to think about the commercial viability. Because, well, obviously, if it is not commercially viable, meaning if society doesn't want it, now society wants your innovation, process or product. Society will give you money. I mean, there's no good luck or bad luck. If you think you're bad luck, maybe you're making something society doesn't want. Maybe you're making something society is already being satisfied with other alternatives. So you have to ask yourself, if you point the finger at society, 3 fingers pointing back at you, am I doing things right? Am I just a crybaby? Am I blaming everybody else except me? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Even if it was right in the beginning at a small scale, maybe it's not. It cannot be scaled up to a commercial scale. Now, in this sense, when I say commercial, I don't mean like making a lot of money. Making a lot of money, maximization of profit, making a lot of money should not be your objective. If it is, I think there was still time for you to go into the property market or the stock market, especially Shanghai and Hong Kong could be somehow connected in some way. Look for opportunity. You can make hundreds of millions easily if that's what you want. If some kind of accomplishment, realization of your dream being changing the world in either a small way or a big way, don't think about money. Think about it has to be commercially viable. Because you have to survive. In the end, as I said again, when you're profitable or reasonably profitable, what it means is one thing: society needs you. Society wants your goods and services. That's all. So making money is not a sin. Making money for the sake of making money is a sin. Making money for the sake of survival is not. Thank you very much.
I'm going to come out to the audience because I'm having lunch with Sir David Akers-Jones and Pochi Wu from HKUST on Monday. They're part of Invotech. They share our vision. Then I've seen Nicholas Brook this morning, chairman of Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, and both of them were saying impossible to have a dialogue. It's very hard in Hong Kong. And I say I've never had a problem in 27 years because I expect dialogue, not monologue, because the shared learnings come from your questions and you're addressing what's on your mind. So this is your opportunity. But I also have, and have always used incentives or bribes, if you will. And these are from a company called LastBit for our official launch of family members, the official launch of this event on May 23rd. An old friend I met when he was 24, he's from the Czech Republic, was coming to my events, and I remember inviting him as a little kid to come to John Major reception and then he gave me a chandelier. He was working for something called Preciosa. They're right over the river Swarovski. And because of communism, he got sent out because he had a college university degree, but his grandmother was also a Swarovski. He built up that company, and I bumped into him a couple of months ago. And all of a sudden, he's an entrepreneur. And I remember getting Ronnie Chan to write a letter of recommendation so he could get the Kellogg entry very easily. But 7 years later, you lose touch because you're raising kids, and he's having 4. And as I'm saying goodbye to my kids, and he's raising his, I bump into him on the street because I'm doing these 20 meetings a week, which is a lot. But I wanted to get out to everybody. And here I bump into Leon. 7 years since he started this company. It's now a $60 million US company, making awesome, he calls them crystal sculptures. He has offices in 13 places around the world. The one that's going into the new Paris Peninsula is a kinetic, very technology-driven installation, which is getting a lot of attention. But his global headquarters is here in Hong Kong. So I'd go see him the next week. And I said, Leon, what's your exit strategy? Everybody, are you going to do an IPO or a trade sale? Obviously, he's bigger than his old employer now. And he really touched my heart when he said, because I never hear this anymore, but it's in the DNA of Hong Kong. He said, Sam, I'm building this company for my 2nd, my 3rd, and 4th generation. So he's become my first founding member, and he's going to be presenting these gifts, incredible plates, and everybody that comes for our founding launch on the 23rd will get this really beautiful crystal USB. And anyway, just wanted to tell that story because I do believe in dialogue, and because he came in late, you're not going to get the gift, but you're going to introduce yourself. This is one of our mentors, but I'm in awe of what they're up to and what they're about. But you're going to ask the first question after you introduce yourself. Go, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Jean Su. I am the co-founder of Startups HK, Hong Kong's tech startup community. So we have started the community in 2010. We now run a lot of events and conferences and also manage this website, startupshk.com, which informs people about what's happening in the tech startup space in Hong Kong. Like today, we actually announced another startup just got acquired, and that startup is called TaxiWise. So the goal of Startups HK is really to build up the startup ecosystem in Hong Kong, allowing entrepreneurs to connect with each other, help each other, and also for investors.
Dialogue, not monologue. Okay. No question.
So, yeah, Peter, that was a really interesting speech, and also it's good to get some insights about your family background, the way you think about things. So I want to, get your take, and since Giordano's transition, from Jimmy Lai's sale and then taking over, and with the up and coming brands such as H&M, Zara, and so forth, how do you see innovation happening in Giordano going forward?
Okay, brilliant. I'm going to give you one of these anyway. Good question. And John, get up. Catch John's eye. Raise your hand.
Shall I respond to this one?
So go ahead, Peter.
I earlier disqualified myself, and I said I was not a guru, high achiever, that sort of thing. But to be fair though, some of you might not have been able to research my background. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. I grew up in Hong Kong. I went to Canada at 17, went to school, got married very young, settled down in Canada. In the meantime, I qualified for 2 accounting degrees, Chartered Accountant and Canadian Management Accountant. And I taught CGA, Canadian Certified Management Accountant. And then before that, of course, I graduated from the University of Alberta with a BCom, concentration in accounting, of course. And then 3 years after that, I think it was around 82, 83, when I was in Calgary, I took a master's in business administration in Calgary. Concentration is in systems. And then 87 came out of Hong Kong, and I think 2004. I think 2004 I got a doctoral degree in business administration from Polytechnic University. Somebody reminded me it was 2011 that I got a master's of Buddhist studies from Hong Kong University. So this is my kind of my background that may qualify me to speak a little bit about systems, philosophy, and the reason I brought this up is not just to show off my degrees, but at University of Calgary, I was told by at the MBA, I also took a course in entrepreneurship, and it was new, very, very new. It was brand new. It was brand new in North America. There was no textbooks, and so we took the course studying the course notes from the professor. So I do know a little bit about entrepreneurship, and I'm also a founding member of WEF, World Entrepreneurs Forum in Lausanne. And but the question of when I joined Giordano, Jimmy Lai, of course, wanted to innovate the company, and he didn't want anybody experienced in the retail or the rec trade at the top. So he recruited a few people, including myself, whose only experience with garments, clothing, was my part-time job selling menswear at Army Navy, a discount store in Edmonton, Canada. But to be fair, sometimes, when I think about it, I'm still using some of the tricks I learned from my Jewish supervisor back in 1973, when I was doing part-time there. At one time, I had 3 part-time jobs on one day. Selling clothes, during summer, selling clothes from 8:13 to 4:13, and then waiting table from 5 o'clock to 11, driving cab from 11 to about 3. Wow. So that was a very, very full schedule for a period of 1 month. I needed the money for my next year's tuition fee. On top of, I got my wife pregnant in that year, so she was not able to work. Anyhow, entrepreneurship. So when Jimmy Lai, after that, Jimmy Lai, you're probably aware, 1989, when Jimmy Lai got interested in publication. So, I think Jimmy Lai is a very smart man. I think some of you might have met him. He knew that he was an entrepreneur. He created things, but he cannot sustain things. I think you might have heard of this. In the audience, I haven't really, I'm sorry, I apologize, because I have not really done the research on the audience, so I don't know what your background exactly. But most of the time, the entrepreneurs, let's say they have been successful. They're successful in the beginning, startup. The next phase, they usually fail. It's transforming or the transition from entrepreneurship to enterprise. How do you systemize? When, as I said earlier, when you have very little, when you have something very small scale, you can be successful. When you want to scale up the commercially viable size scale, then you need planning, organizing, staffing, implementation, and control. These all have to do with management processes. You have to understand strategic control, managerial control, operational control. You need to understand systems, because you cannot do it all. You need people to do it. So the most difficult thing, of course, is people management. But having said that, it's most difficult. It's almost unachievable. It's unachievable to, okay, well, that's fine, Peter. I don't need to know all this planning, organizing, staffing, implementation, and control. I don't need to know systems. I don't need to know pre-control, process control, post-control. I don't need to know the open system, closed system. I don't need to financial control. I don't need all of this. All I have to do is get good people. And I'm bold, attracting, I'm like a magnet. People all flock to me, they all come to me. Well, Jesus, had 12 disciples only, right? And one of them even betrayed him. And then some of them even, they denied him. You will have traitors. Right? You will have so-called traitors. Your good friends, your good teammates that start with you in the beginning, when things are very tough, right? Your buddy. You work till 12 o'clock midnight, and you even underpay them. Well, when the business starts to grow, when there's money, and they're looking at your bank account, where's my share? Your share is more than my share. I want more. Well, sometimes you cannot afford to pay more. Then you take your secret and move next door. So you cannot rely on, always have good people. That's the most difficult thing. So minimum you need to have is business management. Some system or some people or some group of people who can manage that. Now, Jim and I picked me to do that. And I'm happy to say that I have not disappointed him. I'm a curious person. And I could be very innovative. But I was not chosen to do that. I was chosen to, well, I wouldn't say housekeep, but kind of a demeaning word. To take care of all these things. And then I was asked to join a public company, and they were going through the same thing. The family business, the senior wanted to get out of business. The junior did not want to inherit the business, so they were in a transition. So they wanted me to be on the board to help the business transition from a family business to a professionally managed business. Now, that hurdle is the second killer to a lot of entrepreneurs. The first killer, of course, the first hurdle, the first difficulty that you have to overcome is to make sure your ideas really get a mousetrap. Right? Don't delude yourself. Because sometimes you get the creator's syndrome or something like that. Right? You get a certain point, then you fall in love with what you're doing. You refuse to listen to anybody. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So that's one hurdle, the first hurdle. The second hurdle, of course, when you are about to change from entrepreneur to an enterprise, then that cut off another 70% of the business. I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
Peter, about 80% of your audience are all entrepreneurs.
Okay, yeah, I have a lot of respect for you people.
Okay, yes.
My name's Adam Taylor. I'm not really an entrepreneur. I'm a management consultant. But I'd be interested to know to what extent and in what way has your interest in Buddhism affected the way your approach towards running a business? Or are these completely separate components of your life?
Earlier, we all improve, we grow. Right? Earlier, my very simple view or simplistic view of applying Buddhism to business is the idea, concept of karma. Karma. You plant some seed, good seed, and then you have good result. So today, you do your people development, and then this is the seed. This is the karma, the action that you do. Then several years later, some people will grow and help, with the business. So this is a very simple, direct, superficial way of looking at how Buddhism can apply to the business. But this is one thing, people. And then, of course, all these other things. R&D, of course, is sitting. And then your creations on the market will serve society in a very good way. So what you have to look at, you could look at that. But I think that's, as I say, that's a probably fairly junior level. But a more senior level or more advanced level, using some of the Buddhist thinking on business is the idea of independent co-arising, interdependent co-arising. Things don't happen like really sequentially. Things happen like you've seen this in the movies in the battlefield, where people put, 3 rifles stand up, right, leaning against each other. Now, who's depending on what's the sequence? You put A first, or you put B, or you put C first. You take out 1 rifle, the other 2 rifles fall. So something has to happen at the same time. Now, this is very difficult because the Greek logic, the Western philosophy, usually is sequential, right? A implies B, and so on and so forth. But I suppose in Indian logic, of course, that affects the Buddhist thinking, is that things co-arise. They always happen at the same time, and they cannot happen without each other. Now, if I apply that to business, one of the reporters I didn't have time to entertain earlier, she asked me about the new brand, Beaumont, that we have opened over the last few days. And that's the reason I was in China. That is one thing. But the reason for Beaumont to happen is to allow Giordano in China to exit from locations where they are very price sensitive. And Giordano was forced, because Giordano's legacy in the last 10 years of not really taking care of our channel strategy, we had allowed ourselves to be in supermarkets, for example, where we are next to 2 brands that are selling T-shirts at $39. So Giordano, if we were going to survive in those sites, we had to somehow match their price. And that had created an image of Giordano which have not allowed us to go into better shopping centers. So we are not considered international brands. We are considered mass market budget brand, right? Now, so Beaumont's happening is to take over these sites so that Giordano can go into those other sites. So Giordano can redeem itself. But it's not sequential in the sense that, after I open 1,000 Beaumont, then Giordano will go in there. They have to happen at the same time. So Giordano will exit and go in and try to convince the shopping center management that we are a different person today, right? So, put me next to Zara, H&M. So they have to happen at the same time. So that dawned on me this morning, so I sent out an email to the city manager, hey, listen, it's not sequential. Beaumont and Giordano, what they need to do, insofar as this objective is concerned, has to happen at the same time. So this is some of the thinking. Now, one other thinking, of course, is impermanence, right? Things change, everything changes. I think I explained earlier, even you had your starting up buddies with you, but that relationship will not last forever. We have seen so many stories, and we have seen so many friends who break up because of that. And so as the leader, you have to be prepared for changes. Changes come from all directions. The most heartbreaking changes come from within your organization, right?
Peter, how have you kept the entrepreneurial spirit in Giordano all these years?
When I was studying the MBA, I think after that, I picked up a book by the name of called Entrepreneur by Pinchot III, right? And that settled one thing. And because I was pressurized by a lot of my friends, Peter, you're so smart. Why don't you take the plunge? Why don't you take the plunge and get some money and start your own business? Why do you have to work for someone? Well, in Chinese, you might have heard this saying, 工字木不出頭. Literally means when you're an employee, when you work for someone, you'll never be ahead. The book helps me, and because it says, okay, listen, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Because you want to create your freedom. You want to take risk. But if an organization can create an environment for you to do exactly those things, for you to create, for you to innovate, to give you latitude, to give you freedom, why not? Now, if the objective, no, actually, that's not what I really want. I want money. If I'm an entrepreneur, I have my own business, I can pay a lot more money. Well, as I said, go to the property market, buy some flats and wait for the government to cancel the duties, and then you make a lot of money. So you don't want to be an entrepreneur. You want to be a money maker. It's two different professions, very different professions. Now, of course, the way to create that kind of environment within an organization is to break up the organization into small units. Small units where the head office can take risk, right? And allow them to do their own things. Now, in the last 2 years, for example, in China, we used to be quite centralized. Now, recently, we broke it up into 7 regions, or 7 big so-called business units. And I don't want them to talk to each other. Just do your own thing in Western China. Do your own thing in Northern China. Do your own thing in Shenzhen. Do your own thing with the e-shop. If you want to buy your own merchandise, you want to do your interior design in a way that is suitable for Western China, go ahead. Don't go to the head office and wait for what's the instruction, what's the guideline. There's no guideline. The only guideline is do things appropriate. Do things appropriate to the location, the city, the area, the province that you're in. Do things appropriate given what you have in terms of people. Do things appropriate at the right time. So if you can follow those 3 guidelines, you can do whatever you want. That's the kind of message. I think slowly people are beginning to believe me. But as a leader, you have to be very firm. You will have to turn down the email. You actually have to write, answer the email by saying, "Don't ask me." Sometimes even the leaders cannot resist. Sometimes the leaders are tempted to give answers. Sometimes we are just too eager to give answers. And then you destroy that entrepreneur spirit within the organization. Because you continue to allow and train people to lean on you.
Brilliant answer. Question here, then there, and there, and there. Okay.
Hi, my name is Peter. I'm an entrepreneur.
No, put it closer. We can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
I actually have 2 very related and quick questions, if I may. The first one is, how do you see the role of e-commerce evolving in the industry that you're in? And the related question is, what is your take as to why online shopping is not that popular in a very tech-savvy city like Hong Kong?
Like Hong Kong, you mean?
Yes.
Well, Hong Kong is too small, too convenient. It's too convenient. That's the answer. It's just, I think Hong Kong is a little bit behind. We'll catch up eventually, it may. But in China, it's like crazy. We all know that.
Okay. You?
Peter, I was going to ask you a question. First of all, the atmosphere, whether Hong Kong is a good place to really be an entrepreneur. But secondly, you made a comment about your new business. I was just reading a report today in Jing Daily, which is a fashion luxury website. And they're talking about current trends in China. And one of them, they said, I've heard it before, that Chinese brands are growing in popularity. And yet, yours, like so many other new business I see, have given their names to their shops not being Chinese, being a very Western name. Why did you decide on a Western name for your new shop?
So 10 years ago, I think in one of your meetings, I was asked the same question, and I said, double happiness, as your brand name. That will probably come in about 50 years. Because in order to support your brand name, the brand name stands for something. There's a whole bunch of things behind the brand name, what we call the soft power, the soft culture, right? Now, of course, Korean, the K-pop. K-pop, if you name your shop, your brand, anything that is similar to Korean, it will attract attention, right? 10 years ago, if you name your shop, your brand in Japanese, automatically it's okay, it worked. 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, when it has something Hong Kong on it, it worked. Because Hong Kong movies, right, and songs was seen and heard all over the place. You know, all the way from North Korea, to Malaysia. But today, no, very few people listen to Hong Kong songs and watch Hong Kong movies. It's now the Korean trend. Is Hong Kong still a good place for entrepreneurs? Yes. Hong Kong is definitely one of the best, and still the best for entrepreneurs.
I disagree.
Why, Peter?
Despite the government's counterproductive policy towards entrepreneurship. Because Hong Kong, among all the Chinese cultural cities or countries, Hong Kong is still the most free information, rule of law, you know, all these things.
But we lack the appetite for risk, angel investor funds, and a lot of other things.
So it's not small. You know, as I say, before you have something that is proven, at least in your lab, or at least that you can be scaled up commercially, of course the investors would listen to you. Investors are not stupid. Most of the investors are very smart. They have seen so many stories. They have seen so many proposals. They can tell whether you'll make it or not. And you know, there's different ways. You know, this thinking about, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a good creation, I have some very innovative product. All I need is an investor. So some people, you know, try to match the VCs, VEs, or the so-called seed money, you know, with the entrepreneur. I think this model is totally wrong.
All right, well, I say we tell our kids, smaller and larger, go get a good education and go find a safe job in banking, lawyer, doctor. So we lost that.
That depends on what you want in life. If you want, you know, money, stable income in life, sure. But if you're the entrepreneur, you don't goddamn care about all these difficulties because it's in your blood. If you're entrepreneur, it's in your blood, it's in your DNA. But if you're, oh, I can't get money. This is too risky. Maybe you should ask yourself, look in the mirror in the morning, am I an entrepreneur? If I'm so concerned about these things, maybe you're not an entrepreneur. Maybe you're the pseudo entrepreneurs that you have cheated other people. And worst of all, you are cheating yourself.
I've met so many.
That's delusion.
Yeah.
And that's Buddhist also. Buddha say, don't delude yourself.
All right, I've met so many students that are getting their education here in engineering degrees and creative degrees that tell me they can't get work visas. I remember years ago having
Oh, you mean foreign students?
Huh?
Foreign students cannot get work
From
visa.
everywhere.
Well, that's something else. It doesn't mean that. I mean, every system, every society have some kind of a protection. Same with Canada. If I go to Canada, I want a work permit. They don't give a work permit regularly. Right? Same thing.
All right, well, here's an example.
Even in China, it's the same way. It's not easy to get a... Singapore is the same way. You have to get visa.
I agree. But these people are they're getting their intellectual capital here. I remember having a debate with Mahathir and Colin Powell, and Mahathir pointed his finger at Colin Powell, accusing them for stealing their intellectual capital, because all of Malaysia students were going to the U.S. and staying there. And we're allowing our intellectual capital to leave, who educated them, and there should be some temporary 18-month visa to keep people here.
Well, as I said, I'm not on the side of the government. The government is doing a lot of things counterproductive, not only to foreign students, foreign graduates, even to Hong Kong graduates, Hong Kong people, Hong Kong residents.
Okay.
Question.
Annabelle, I know you're
I have an e-commerce question. Do you have a big e-commerce in China?
Yeah.
When I moved to Hong Kong, I learned from Chinese that I would buy something defective and then I would bring it to my office and say, this is not good, I want to return it. And they looked at me like I was from the moon, you know?
Yeah, we changed that in 1987.
Yeah, you
Exchange
did.
and refunds. No,
But has this changed in China, and is that why e-commerce is so popular, and what is the rate of return?
Well, actually, the potential.
The rate of return.
Yeah, the rate of return.
Yeah.
The rate of return is about actually 5%
You know, in the States,
on the average. It's not that bad.
in the States it's 50%.
Yeah, I returned my Sears dining room furniture after 10 months for some scratch on the leg.
Okay.
5%?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It varies from product to product.
You got your answer.
I'm general, it's about 5.
Okay. Question here, question there.
Thanks, Sam. My name is Patrick. I'm a digital entrepreneur. I'm originally from Hong Kong, been back to Hong Kong only recently. And I'm an accidental digital entrepreneur. I used to be bricks and mortars for a long, long time. Having been back to Hong Kong recently, the question I would like to raise for our esteemed guests, Peter, Sam, in entrepreneurship, investment analysts, business analysts, there's no question that digital economy is here. Like it or not, traditional retailing will be disrupted. The question is, how many or how Hong Kong traditional retailing, be it mass market brand, middle market brand, or luxury brand, has prepared for this disruption?
You're going to get a very good question award. How about that? Excellent.
You know, Jack Ma, you know, the boss of Alibaba, he predicts that in about 20 years' time, the digital commerce will take up 50% of market share, leaving 50% to the bricks. I think it's a little bit too aggressive. I think I'm looking at maybe 30%. Now, in other words, there's still 70% bricks, right? And I don't make a differentiation between so-called, you know, lower cost, lower price products and the international expensive $200,000 handbag type brand. But if you look at the physical store, how can they survive? Well, you survive by providing an experience which is different, you know, from the digital world. Right? And this is one thing. But that's not two extremities. Either you go totally digital or you go totally physical. Now, of course, people are talking about O2O, right? Offline, online, you know, things like that. So the whole omni-channel thing, I think it's actually a lot more, makes a lot more sense. If you consider how you behave, right? You know, with your phone, with your PDA, with your iPad, and your Samsung and whatnot, you want to be able to do things anywhere, anytime, any way you want. Freedom, control, right? So how do you create that kind of a condition for your clients that would determine who will be faster than the competitors? So there is going to be a place for the brick and mortar. It's not going to be like completely gone. The dinosaurs died because they couldn't cope. Right? But I think the physical stores can cope. But in terms of numbers or in terms of the market share, certainly I think that will be somewhat lower. If we look at, for example, but this is a good thing. One book, some of the books I really love I used to read a lot. Books on people like Alvin Toffler, Faith Popcorn, right? The futurist.
Yeah.
They kind of predict mega trends.
Yeah.
Now, one of the mega trends is this, which I love. People is going to work less, right? And people are going to enjoy life more, in what form? Arts, arts includes the broad sense, music, opera, paintings, whatever. I think it's a good thing because we are not made to work. We are made to enjoy life, right? So I think all these are good things. The e-commerce, the digital is going to make things a lot more efficient. There will be less shops. Salespeople will work less hours, right? And they'll use their spare hours to enjoy life, spend more time with the families. I think all these are good things. I'm very optimistic.
Super. Another question here?
Yeah, just want to ask the experience about working in Giordano.
Yeah.
Speak to the mic.
My name is Joe. Okay. And actually, you are the higher level of the organization. It's easier for you to see things or point out the things to improve whatever, right? But what about the people in your lower level? Do you have any, approach or the chance to bridge them to allow them to speak their idea to help the process?
Well, as I said, as long as you're firm, people do not create. People do not become independent because they are used to be depending on somebody high up. Right? If you're parents, you all know. If you keep your son and daughter as babies, they'll always be babies. But you kick them out, they'll become independent. But it takes a lot of heart to kick them out. Your employees, your people are the same way. They come to you for easy answers. Right? We have, you know what our greatest enemy is? All of you and me. Mental laziness. Right? So people will always come to you for easy answer. So they don't need to think. Not that they are deliberately or they consciously they don't want to think. It's just a habit. Because we're a social animal. We live in a society. Everything is being taken care of. We go out, there's a train. We go out and there's fast food nearby. There's always convenience. There's always answer. We're hungry, there's a fast food nearby. And if we are tired, there's a taxi or MTR nearby. So if you have a mental problem, not in that sense, you have a question, you have a problem that you want to solve, well, there's a boss nearby. So you have to, I don't want to talk to you, go back, you figure this out. But it's hard for the boss to say because we want to show off, right? The bosses want to show off, I know everything. I'm the boss, I have to know everything. So you come to me with a question, I must answer you, otherwise you think I'm an idiot, I don't know the answers. So sometimes the fault is the boss. It's not your people. Right? Okay. And this is what I've been learning. I've learned only in the last 18 months to be conscious, to say no.
Yes. Yeah.
My name is Catherine. I've spent years in organizations, human resources, business operations, business management, also consulting to the same. So I'm particularly interested in some of the issues embedded in your speech around culture and business process. And in particular, I wanted to harken back to some observations of a few minutes ago around intrapreneurialism or innovation entrepreneurialism in the organization, which is a huge challenge. It's sought after by many companies, fails in most. And usually the issue becomes that true entrepreneurs, as you have mentioned, are risk takers. Implicit in risk-taking is the risk of failure, the willingness to accept the consequences of not succeeding in what you do. You've spoken about your organization keeping the business units pretty independent. They have the liberty of behaving autonomously or appropriately within their regions or business zones, all of which makes sense. But at the end of the day, is it not important to understand the organizational tolerance for failure, or the consequences of failure, as it then is applicable to fostering that entrepreneurial attitude? And what do you do in Giordano in that area?
Well, I assuming there's no shareholder in the audience, yeah, we are very tolerant of failures. I think the past 10 years, we have probably lost about $150 million on a lot of these test force startups, things like that. You're perfectly right. I mean, for an organization to say one thing and do something else, then obviously it's not right. So, so you have to ask yourself, what's the tolerance, what's the risk appetite in terms of the entrepreneurial activities in the organization. I would say, the accountants, professional, the CPAs in Hong Kong would not allow you to do that, but I really don't mind. The senior management, they probably should put aside, some slush fund, at least mentally, for that. So it wouldn't come as a surprise when the losses are recorded. It was still, surprise to shareholders because, as I say, the accountants wouldn't allow you to make allowances, right? But you have to be prepared for that. So yes, we do have a high tolerance for that. But we also, at the same time, we also ask for proper entrepreneur. I mean, we have general managers, 7 general managers, or assistant general managers, regional managers in China. What's in the name? A name is only a name, right? I don't mean to insult you. Some of the disciplines that you do, including HR. So you're HR something, right? Consultant. What does that mean? You're an HR consultant, doesn't mean that you are an HR consultant. Right? You're an HR consultant, only people call you an HR consultant. But when people do not call you an HR consultant, you're not HR consultant. So it's funny. So some of the general managers say, I'm a general manager, I'm an entrepreneur. But that's what you say. Right? That's not necessarily what you are. So like I said 10 minutes ago, look in your mirror in the morning, every morning, am I an entrepreneur? Although you're labeled entrepreneur, especially I'm working in the science park, I must be an entrepreneur. Otherwise Helen wouldn't take me in. That's the greatest delusion in the world, for you, unfortunately. Right?
Okay.
So,
yeah. You hadn't finished the thought?
No.
Okay, all right, because we've got lots of questions. One over here, one over here, and one up there, so yeah.
Hello, I'm Doug Weitz. I was the founder of PRDA, which is Asia's first social media management agency. First, I want to say thank you for Beaumont because I'm fuller figured and I like bigger sizes. I appreciate that. Thank you. I've got a lot of questions. I'm going to keep it down to like 1 or 2. You have a very interesting talking style that seems to elicit more questions and provide answers, which I find very exciting. I'd like to touch on what you mentioned because my question, the biggest question is about culture. You've talked about starting in Canada, strong entrepreneurial spirit. We all live in Hong Kong, and a lot of what we've talked about is about Hong Kong right now. And then you shared quite a bit about China, which is very, very interesting about how you're launching a new brand, and kind of a new strategy on how to manage a brand. And it was raised about risk, about individuals, the organizational's appetite for risk. But I'm interested in the cultural and the individual. How does the change in culture of going from Canada to Hong Kong to China, how has that influenced how the organization is shaped and how you've been able to make different decisions based on where you're at? With regard to risk, I'm sorry this is a very long question, but with regard to risk, there was a study recently released that said that this generation in Hong Kong is the most risk adverse of the last in probably about 50 years. Whereas we know in China, it's a little bit cowboy right now. So you can do a lot more things. So how does organization, okay, I'll just stop talking. I think you know the question. Thank you.
The cultural diversity, or the impact of cultural diversity or cultural differences on the way you do things in certain part of the world is a myth. It is a myth. Tosted, I think back in 1970 something or 80, early 1980, he studied cultural diversity. I think the second study that came out in about 2009, maybe 20, maybe what year is now, 2014, maybe 2007, 2008. Then he discovered this another cultural dimension, the Confucius, the Chinese, very specific. Now, yes, this is one factor that influences some of us, the way we think, right? It has a role in affecting the people you manage in your organization, or the people you deal with, your business clients or whatnot. But that's another element, I think it's very important. I think it cuts across cultures, individual difference, the kind of personality you are, right? The personality you are is much stronger than your cultural background. So when you have a difficulty, or whatever, you have a relationship, good or bad, with somebody from a different country or culture, don't immediately label it to cultural differences. It's the individual. I think that's the way to look at it. My dissertation in my doctoral program, I tried to discover exactly that, which is more pervasive or more potent in affecting certain behavior or attitude. And I found out the cultural factor, it's R squared. It's actually just slightly over 0.3, very low. But if you do individual differences, right, it's almost like 0.5, 0.6. So it's pretty much, greater than the cultural thing. Of course, we have a lot of time to play with the culture thing, which is a lot of consultants would love to enlist you as a client to try to solve a problem that cannot be solved. But spend more time on individual differences, whether it's American, British, Chinese, Korean, doesn't matter. Look through his cultural, whatever, into his personality, into his heart.
Okay, I think we have about 4 or 5 more questions and very little time left. So one here, one over there, one up there, and one up there, and you'll get the last question. How about that? But make them quick questions.
Thanks. I'm Sam Kumar. Question for you. 1% versus 99%. What's your view on that in terms of all the global inequality, and specifically in Hong Kong? We've heard a lot about younger people not wanting to be entrepreneurs, sticking to their jobs. Maybe, just maybe, there's a method to, not exactly the madness, there is some sense of that, because a lot of that has been stifled because of all the basic cream rising to the top there. The rich get richer, as you mentioned in your speech too. When I came to Hong Kong in 94, 95, for example, Giordano Lai was the rage of someone who had made it on his own. Last 20 years, I don't know if there's been any big success stories. Your views on that, please?
If I got your question correctly, you're referring to equality or Hong Kong again. Does it have a good environment for entrepreneurs? Now, I happen to be, I have another business card that I'm supposed to be some kind of can you read this up because I haven't got my glasses? What's my title?
I thought I put anything. Dr. Peter Lau, Investment Promotion Ambassador. He's one of the best, actually.
Well, I'm supposed to be ambassador promoting Hong Kong business on getting people to invest in Hong Kong. So, what I say, what I said earlier referred to all those things earlier about the freedom, the access to information, and so on and so forth. The rule of law, comparatively, is still better than a lot. I'm not saying Hong Kong is perfect. Or I don't think Hong Kong is actively pro entrepreneurship, especially from foreign countries. But Hong Kong just happened to have inherited the 150 years of British influence, the freedom, the information, all these good things, and the rule of law. But 17 years ago, ever since we took back, repatriated Hong Kong, or even the there's a slight change, of course. And some of these changes are making it probably grounded in nationalism somehow, and therefore it had maybe added a little bit more of protection. I think the most controversial one, of course, is about the medical profession. Right? And but that question that put to me 30 minutes ago was that, do I still think Hong Kong? My answer to that was Hong Kong is still the best in the world. Have you considered everything? Now, not all countries. If you look at Canada, for example, is Canada good for entrepreneurship? Well, the entire Canada is only 25 million people, right? And so the density is nowhere near Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, there's 7 million people, plus maybe 40 million or 80 million Chinese tourists. The sample size is so big. When you create something, then you test it in Mongkok, Silent Chai Street, right? You get such a big sample. But in Canada, you probably have in Edmonton, where I came from. At that time, only 400,000 people. You probably have to put your product there for 2 years before you can test it. Because you haven't got enough people to show interest. So all things considered, Hong Kong is still the best. We do have, as you said, some problem, visas and so on. So I don't exactly know the legality of that. But I think there are ways that you can somehow get around, get over it. I don't know. Entrepreneurs are supposed to be very creative, not only in what you invent, but in a way you beat the system. So you look at it, I'm an entrepreneur. If I can only make product, but I cannot beat the system, well, maybe you're not the top entrepreneur, maybe.
As a new economy organization, I'm always going to start on time, we're going to end on time, and we have about 7 more minutes to go.
Okay, my name is Alex Wang. I'm a technologist specializing in nanomaterials. I moved from Silicon Valley to Hong Kong last year. So I have questions on the technology. Related to your company is the wearable electronics. I'm not sure how that already being populated here. Obviously, it's a very popular topic. So my question is that, well, actually I solicited your comment or perspective in terms of integrations of textile with the wearable electronics or any other advanced technology.
Well, I think that's a little bit too far-fetched in terms of nanotechnology, those really teeny little things that can crawl over your garment to do things. I think that maybe after my days, right? Maybe 20 years later. But I want to brag about a couple of things that we do in terms of technology. Number one is about information technology. I remind you, as I said, I specialized in systems when I was in Canada, and I'm very good with systems theory. So I think we have the best information system in the industry. Well, that is evidenced by a consultant specializing in that sort of thing that gave us a pitch. This is about 10 years ago, and she withdrew her proposal after we showed them what we got. We were years ahead of what she was proposing. So I'm very proud of that. And number two is the recently, we talk about e-commerce, digital a little bit. We have created this new system, Tiger Anywhere. Now our information system, I don't know why, it's called Tiger system. So we have Tiger system, and we are, during the summer, we'll probably have them in most of our shops in China, maybe some shops outside of China. And that can supplement sales, potentially lost sales due to broken size. And in some of the stores that are very successfully used this system, their sales can supplement as much as 30% of the stores, the break sales. So that's some kind of an old thing. You probably understand, I'm not quite sure how many of you are in family business. You can never have full sizes in your stores. It would be too expensive to have. So you have broken sizes sometimes. and whatever supply system that you want to use to make sure that you minimize the broken size situation. Sometimes it's very costly. Anyway.
Okay. Time for 2 more questions. Lindley, you.
I'll be short with my answers. I'll be more punchy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lau. Thank you for your sharing. You just shared with us about your background. You are a certified accountant, and you got MBA, BA, and after your study in choosing your career, you have chosen Giordano, a garment company. Can you share with us at the time you chosen Giordano, how do you find yourself being a fit person in the garment industry? And after you jump in that industry, what keep you stay in the industry and motivate you to stay and excel in that industry?
Well, as I say, I have to qualify. I'm not quite sure I have excelled. I did not choose Giordano. Giordano chose me to begin with. I gave up all I had in Canada, and I took a 20% pay cut to come to Hong Kong. I was moved or touched by Jimmy. He's very good at that. And so I gave myself a 3 being a system person. So I look at the short term, medium term, and long term. Short term, 1 year. I had been away from Hong Kong 17 years. I'm not quite sure if I could cope. So I gave myself 1 year. If I could not cope, I believed if I had to go back to Canada with the good relationship I had with the company that I worked for, I probably could get my old job back. So that's 1 year is the first hurdle. So if I pass the first hurdle, then I'll give myself 2 more years, total 3 years. If I begin to see that after the first year that I was easing into my role, then I will be getting somewhere. Then I'll tough it out for 2 more years. Now, and then I also at the same time told myself, well, things do change. Even if you are successful in the first 3 years, you get accepted in the first 3 years. Doesn't mean that you can continue. So I asked myself, well, if I can pass these 2 tests, the first 1 year and the second is the 3rd year time, then I'll give it all I had. I will not return. Right? And the only way to do is forward. Because I already passed all these things. I already proven there was a potential for me to be able to survive. And I shouldn't give up. I should persevere. So those are my plan. Selling clothes, I don't know. Doesn't really matter. I can sell anything. I can do anything. What is it about selling clothes? What is management? The same question I asked my Form 5 students on last Saturday. It's about planning, planning, organizing, organizing, staffing, implementing, and controlling. And it's everything is about this. Those 5 steps.
Okay, last question, Lindley. Make it quick.
Hi, Mark. I have one question, please. In the opening, you talked about the importance for you of legacy.
Closer to the mouth.
The importance of legacy, what you want to leave behind. What are 3 key qualities that you're looking for in leaders in Giordano to hand over your legacy?
3 qualities of leadership.
Human qualities.
Human qualities.
Good question.
Well, number 1, I don't know. You can call it integrity, goodness, wholesome, and all these things. You've got to be a good person, right? There's nothing more important than this quality, because in the end we all die. When we die, or we're about to die, and we grow old, and we don't feel really open to tell our sons and grandchildren what we have done without a drop of shame. Well, we are not worth dying. Sorry, we are not worth living, but we are not worth having to come to this life in the first place. So you've got to be a good person somehow. I would do, have regrets, but later ones is okay. But number 2 is wisdom. I mean, you can be a very nice person, but you don't even know the 26 letters in the alphabet. So that's not very good, because you're too lazy to pursue wisdom. To be curious in finding out things, in reading books, or whatever, talking to intelligent people, and trying to learn something from the conversation or dialogue, in whatever source. I mean, wisdom, knowledge is everywhere around us. It's everywhere. Right? Only we care to open ourselves up, to allow the wisdom to come in us. So that's very important. And number 3 is to persevere. There will be difficulties. Life is not a smooth road. We all know that. And I've gone through my 20-hour day, 3 jobs in Canada. It was not tough, but it was not very nice. And especially when I didn't even know my way around driving cab. So you have to persevere. And so those are the 3 qualities I would look for in, number 1, not only all my people that work for me, but even my friends. I try to look for those 3 things. But we don't always get all of them. Sometimes we only get maybe 20% of people that have all 3, maybe another 30% that has one of those 3, and so on and so forth. But life is not perfect. Right? So, but the important thing is that, again, as I said, what I've said in the last hour and a half or so can be poison to some of you. Because if you don't have the same destination as I have, because I speak to you with a certain prejudice, and that prejudice is my picture of a world. Now that is not shared by everybody. I've been laughed at many, many times. Peter, you're hypocrites. You only say that because you can't shame. Because you don't have enough money. That's why you're saying that, I don't care about money. Well, that's fine. So it could be poison to some people. Right? But if you feel the same way that I feel, then I think some of these advices could be chewed on, could be considered. And as I said in the beginning, some of the things I said are probably appear to be pretentious. Some of them are probably simply stupid, but that's fine. You learn something from the stupid things that I've said. You learn something from my hypocrisy. You learn something from me, even even my vices are bad. So you can stay away from these offenses. It depends on what you are, what you want to do. And again, this is the last question, so I just say again, thank you very much for
You've been dancing on stage, and I'm wowing at all of this, and I just, from a personal point of view, want to say thank you. I'm delighted that you could join us. Just to wrap up things, we ran a few minutes over, I apologize, but I'm reminded of a quote by Ben Franklin, which is, well done is better than well said. So I think you did an awesome job today, and I'm extending an invitation for you guys to see Well Done on May 23rd as we do our official launch and announce a lot of new initiatives, so sign up early. But if you could first, a gift, I'll tell you about it later, but it's a calligraphy and a crystal thing, which hopefully you can use. And as always, if you, we normally do a structured networking hour of power, but we have a holiday tomorrow, so suggest grab a bottle of water, mingle a little bit, then you can get home early, because we're going to have wine, food, and a big reception, and a real powered networking session, because I've invited a lot of VIPs to kind of join us on May 23rd for this session. And I invite you also to come to witness and be one of our VIPs and be a part of the launch. So if you could join with me in showing an awesome appreciation for Peter Lau. Enjoy your holiday. Thank you.